Jeudy has had a rough season, dropped passes, missed routes, and mounting criticism. But what happened on the sidelines this week may have done more damage than all his on-field mistakes combined. When he turned on Shedeur mid-game, berating him and clapping in his face, it wasn't just a teammate lashing out. It was a player unraveling under pressure, exposing a pattern of immaturity that's been brewing for years. From Steve Smith's public takedowns to his own defensive reactions, Jeudy has struggled to handle criticism. And now, even his own team might be losing patience. In sharp contrast, Shedeur showed restraint, taking the high road and continuing to own his own performance. That difference in response matters. It shows who's building for the future and who's becoming.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The Browns are making it clear, this isn't just about stats anymore. It's about setting. It started with a sideline moment. Jeudy, frustrated, animated, clapping in the face of Shedeur in front of teammates, coaches, and cameras. He wasn't just venting. He was berating his quarterback, loudly, disrespectfully, and publicly. And in that moment, everything shifted. Veteran players quickly stepped in to separate the two, but the damage was already done. The altercation was broadcast on live television and immediately lit up social media, becoming the focal point of the Browns' latest controversy. And while some thought it was just another emotional flare-up in a tough game, the Browns' front office, and especially team owner Jimmy Haslam, didn't see it that way. This wasn't just a heated sideline moment. This was a reflection of deeper dysfunction, and Haslam saw it for what it was. He didn't hold back. According to reports, Haslam was furious. He immediately backed Shedeur, praising the rookie quarterback's composure, accountability, and maturity. And he didn't mince words about Jeudy, whose actions not only disrespected a teammate, but directly undermined the culture the Browns are desperately trying to. And that culture? It's everything right now. The Browns have been stuck in the cycle for years. High draft picks, short-term hype, long-term disappointment. This isn't a team that can afford to waste time or tolerate distractions. Especially not when those distractions are coming from a player like Jeudy, whose production has been underwhelming and whose attitude continues to raise red flags. Let's not sugarcoat this. Jeudy has not been living up to expectations. Drops, fumbles, missed opportunities. The numbers don't lie. For a receiver getting paid $52.5 million over 3 years, the output simply hasn't matched the investment. And when you pair that with a reputation for struggling with criticism, going back to being called just a guy by Steve Smith Sr., you start to see the full picture. A player who hasn't found consistency on the field, and who lashes out when things don't go his way. This incident just made it unavoidable. And the worst part? It wasn't just a lapse in judgment. It was an act that could tear at the fabric of a team already under pressure. Teams don't implode over one bad play. They break down when trust erodes, when egos clash, when leadership is challenged. And that's exactly what happened on that sideline. Shedeur didn't fight back. He didn't react emotionally. He didn't get baited into a war of words. Instead, he took a breath. And when the cameras moved on, he handled it like a leader. After the game, Sanders didn't throw Jeudy under the bus. He spoke about timing, trust, and chemistry. He took responsibility for his part in the offensive struggles. He acted like a franchise quarterback, without needing to call himself one. And that was all Jimmy Haslam needed to see. In the days that followed, it became clear that the Browns' front office wasn't going to sweep this under the rug. There were whispers about disciplinary action, about potential trades, even about Jeudy's long-term future with the team. Because this incident didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the latest in a series of concerns about a player who, despite his talent, hasn't shown the maturity or accountability needed at the professional level. Meanwhile, Sanders, a rookie, is doing everything right. He's handling criticism with grace. He's staying focused on development. He's keeping the locker room intact while veterans are losing their cool. And in an offense that's already been criticized for being too one-dimensional, over-reliant on running plays, and barely scraping together a competent passing game, He's doing everything he can with what he's got. Which makes the sideline disrespect even more absurd. Jeudy, a receiver who's failed to deliver consistently, choosing to publicly challenge the one guy actually showing leadership? That's not just tone deaf, it's toxic. And it points to a bigger issue the Browns can no longer afford to ignore. Kevin Stefanski's offense isn't working. The passing game lacks rhythm. The weapons aren't being used effectively. But in the middle of all of this, Shedeur Sanders has been one of the few stable pieces. And if Jeudy can't see that, if he thinks the answer is to humiliate his quarterback mid-game, then it might be time to move on. There's a reason Haslam stepped in. There's a reason the reaction wasn't just internal. The Browns are making a statement. They are prioritizing professionalism, accountability, and team culture. And Jerry Jeudy's sideline meltdown flew in the face of all three. This wasn't about one bad moment. It's about a pattern. Jeudy has struggled with criticism for years. He hasn't shown growth. He hasn't taken ownership of his performance. And now, with the spotlight on him again, this time for behavior, not stats, he's in danger of being seen not just as underperforming, but uncoachable. That's a label that sticks. And in a league where locker room chemistry matters as much as on-field production, it's a dangerous place to be. On the other hand, Sanders is earning respect the hard way. By staying quiet when he could have gone public. By accepting blame when he didn't have to. By proving that leadership isn't about yelling louder. It's about staying calm when everything around you is falling apart. And right now, that's exactly what the Browns need. They're not just rebuilding a roster. They're trying to build an identity. One rooted in discipline, respect, and growth. And while Jeudy's behavior threatens that vision, Sanders' response is reinforcing it. Every day he shows up, stays focused, and leads by example. He's moving closer to being the face of the franchise. So what happens next? For Jeudy, the window is closing. Fast. If the Browns decide he's too much of a liability, on and off the field, he could be traded. He could be benched. He could be gone. And with each passing day, the chances of him repairing that relationship shrink. Because there's no walking this one back with a tweet or a half-hearted apology. Not when ownership has already made its stance clear. Not when your quarterback took the high road, and you chose to turn it into a circus. In the NFL, moments like this matter. They don't just reveal character. They define careers. Shedeur Sanders just passed a massive test. Jerry Jeudy might have just failed his. Let us know what you think. Should the Browns give Jeudy one last shot? Or is it time to cut ties and move forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who's been watching this saga unfold. And hit that like and subscribe button to stay locked in on the latest from the league's most unpredictable team. Because if this is where the Browns are headed, it's going to be one wild ride. So here's where things start to get real. When Jimmy Haslam publicly backed Shedeur Sanders after the incident with Jerry Jeudy, it wasn't just about standing up for a rookie quarterback. It was a signal to the entire Browns organization. The culture war is over and professionalism just won. In NFL terms, that's not a small thing. For years, the Browns have wrestled with identity issues, promising talent, disappointing results, and a revolving door of quarterbacks, coaches, and controversies. But now, they have a young leader in Sanders who, despite the chaos, has kept his cool. And that means something. Especially when veteran players, like Jeudy, are the ones causing the... What Jeudy did wasn't just impulsive, it was symbolic. Clapping in your quarterback's face, questioning his decisions during a game, putting him on blast in front of teammates and national cameras. That's not leadership. That's implosion. It's a kind of moment that makes you wonder if a player is even on the same page with the rest of the team. Or worse, if he cares about being part of it at all. And when a veteran melts down on a rookie for something that should have stayed behind closed doors, it tells you everything you need to know about where that player is mentally. Let's not forget, this is a player who's already walking a tightrope. Jeudy came into the Browns' locker room with baggage. He's talented, sure. But he's also been inconsistent. His performance this season? Underwhelming. His chemistry with quarterbacks? Lacking. His ability to handle adversity? Questionable at best. This isn't the first time he struggled to process criticism or frustration. But it might be the first time it's cost him everything. And yes, Shedeur Sanders is still learning. He's not perfect. He's not out there throwing 5-touchdown games every Sunday. But what he's showing is much harder to teach than throwing mechanics or playbook knowledge. He's showing leadership under pressure. After the confrontation, Sanders could have gone scorched earth. He could have dragged Jeudy through the mud. But instead, he took responsibility. He spoke about patience, about building timing, about needing time to develop that trust. That's not just damage control. That's a quarterback speaking to the bigger picture. And it's why Haslam, the coaches, and even the locker room are backing him. Meanwhile, Jeudy's emotional outburst now lives online forever. The clips, the commentary, the debate, it's all a permanent part of his narrative now. And that narrative is starting to sound very familiar. High potential, low output, poor attitude. That's a brutal combination in a league that's always looking to cut dead weight, especially when you're not producing. And that's the piece that keeps coming up. It's one thing if Jeudy were balling out, lighting up defenses, making plays, carrying the offense. But he's not. He's dropping passes. He's missing assignments. And now he's picking fights with the one guy trying to keep the team together. It's hard to justify keeping a player like that around, especially when his contract doesn't reflect his contribution. A $52.5 million deal over 3 years is not pocket change. It's an investment, one that's supposed to come with leadership, production, and professionalism. So far, Jeudy is delivering none of these, and the Browns are starting to notice. Behind the scenes, people are talking. Is Jeudy still part of the future? Will the team look to trade him? Could he be benched or even cut? All those questions are on the table now. And not just because of one moment, but because that moment was the tip of the iceberg. Because for a franchise that's trying to build something sustainable, you need more than athletes. You need culture carriers. People who reinforce the values you're trying to establish. And when someone directly undermines that, they become expendable. That's the difference in how Jeudy and Sanders have handled adversity. Sanders has taken the hits, literally and figuratively, and responded with grace. He's dealt with the scrutiny, the pressure, and now public humiliation, and he's never once thrown a teammate under the bus. That kind of self-control isn't just rare, it's invaluable. And it's exactly why Jimmy Haslam made it a point to back him so vocally. Because the Browns don't just see Shedeur as a quarterback. They see him as a cornerstone, a player to build around, someone who can help finally change the story in Cleveland. It's not a stretch to say that this one incident might have solidified Sanders' status as the future of the franchise. Because sometimes leadership isn't about stats. It's about how you act when everything's falling apart. And Sanders, in that moment, proved he's built for the spotlight. Jeudy, on the other hand, looked like a player unraveling under the... And if you're in the front office, the decision becomes simple. Who represents the future of this team? Who reflects the values you're trying to instill? The guy starting fights in frustration, or the one handling disrespect with calm professionalism? It's an easy answer, and fans are seeing it too. Social media lit up with reactions, most of them praising Sanders for keeping his composure, and slamming Jeudy for turning on his quarterback in public. That kind of narrative doesn't just damage a player's current role. It can follow them from team to team. Reputations. And right now, Jeudy's rep is sliding in the wrong direction. If he wants to salvage it, the window is small. He's going to have to show maturity fast. He'll need to apologize, not just to Sanders, but to the entire locker room. He'll need to show up in practice, produce on game day, and rebuild the trust he's just shattered. And even then, it still might not be enough. Because sometimes a moment like this is too big to bounce back from. Especially when the organization is making it clear that it's moving forward with a different kind of leadership. This isn't about making an example out of Jeudy. It's about setting a tone that says professionalism matters, that says leadership matters, that says you can't just wear the jersey, you have to earn it every day. And right now, only one of these players is doing that. So, if you've been following this Browns saga from the beginning, here's where we're at. Shedeur Sanders is rising. Jeudy is sinking. And Jimmy Haslam just made it known exactly where the franchise is headed. It's not about flash. It's not about hype. It's about, this isn't the end of the story, though. There's more fallout coming. Whether it's a roster move, a locker room shift, or another explosive headline, the Browns are at a tipping point. And what happens next will either unify the team or tear it apart. And here's the thing. This isn't just a sideline dust-up that blows over after a team meeting and a PR-coached apology. This is a flashpoint. The kind of moment that defines who stays, who goes, and what kind of team you're actually building behind all the press conferences and post-game cliches. Because when Jeudy turned his frustration into a full-blown verbal takedown of Shedeur Sanders on live television, no less, he didn't just call out a teammate. He called into question the entire foundation the Browns have been trying to lay down. And Jimmy Haslam heard it loud and clear. That's why the response from ownership was swift. Haslam didn't just back Sanders, he endorsed him. Made it clear that Shedeur is the kind of player this franchise wants to build around. That type of backing doesn't happen unless the organization is all in. And when the guy cutting the checks picks a side that publicly, it's not just words, it's direction. Now let's not kid ourselves. Things have been rough in Cleveland this season. The offense is a mess. Kevin Stefanski's playbook has been under a microscope, and not in a good way. Everyone knows it's been run-heavy, predictable, and often ineffective. The passing game is almost an afterthought at this point, and the wide receivers? They're starving for production. But here's the catch. Blowing up on the rookie quarterback doesn't fix any of that. It only exposes more cracks. Jeudy's been underperforming all season. His routes haven't been sharp. The drops are becoming weekly. And let's be real, if he was catching touchdowns and leading the offense, people might look at this differently. Talent buys you a longer leash in the NFL. But when you're not producing and you're acting out, that's when the alarms start blaring. And that's exactly where Jeudy finds himself now, underperforming, under scrutiny, and potentially on the way out. What's wild is that he did this to himself. No one forced him into that outburst. No one scripted that meltdown. He chose to confront Sanders on the field, on camera, in front of teammates. It wasn't leadership. It wasn't constructive. It was about ego. Frustration boiling over without accountability. And that's why this isn't just an isolated moment. It's part of it. This isn't Jeudy's first brush with controversy. He's struggled with criticism since entering the league. His run-ins with media, former players, and even teammates have painted a picture of someone who doesn't take feedback well. That's fine when you're a rookie adjusting to the spotlight. But when it continues year after year, that's a red flag. And now, it's waving in the middle of Cleveland. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is showing everyone what actual leadership looks like. Not just in pressers, but in the little things. The way he carries himself. The way he responds to pressure. The way he keeps his focus on team progress, not personal battles. That's the kind of presence that doesn't just win locker rooms. It builds legacies. It's early in his NFL career, but Sanders has already shown more poise than most veterans. The fact that he didn't bite back when Jeudy came at him, that says more than any stat line. Because that kind of restraint, when you've been publicly humiliated, isn't easy. It's discipline. It's maturity. And most of all, it's leadership. And make no mistake, players are watching. Locker rooms pay attention to these moments. They see who stays calm, who deflects blame, who shows up the next day ready to work. And right now, the contrast between Sanders and Jeudy couldn't be starker. One is acting like the future of the franchise. The other is acting like a distraction the team can no longer. That's why the whispers about a potential trade aren't just speculation. They're expected. If you're the Browns front office, what exactly are you keeping Jeudy around for at this point? His production isn't justifying the contract. His attitude is poisoning team dynamics. And now the owner is publicly siding with the quarterback he disrespected. What's the upside in keeping that energy in the building? Especially when the message from Haslam is crystal clear. We are not doing business as usual anymore. This isn't the old Browns. The team that tolerated toxic locker rooms and drama-filled seasons in the name of talent. That approach never worked. And after years of being a league punchline, the Browns are finally trying to rewrite the script, build a culture, create stability. And they found a guy in Sanders who fits that mold. So now the organization has a choice to make. Keep Jeudy and risk undermining everything Sanders is trying to build, or cut ties and send the clearest message possible. Culture matters more than if they choose the latter. It won't just be about Jeudy. It'll be about every other player in that locker room watching what happens next. Because how you respond to this kind of incident defines how seriously your standards actually are. Do the Browns want to be the team that lets wideouts shout down their quarterbacks without consequence? Or the team that backs composure over chaos? From what we've seen, they've already made that decision. And if Jeudy isn't on board with it, he'll find himself on the outside looking in, fast. Here's the bigger picture. Leadership is changing in the NFL. Teams aren't just chasing stars anymore. They're chasing stability, chemistry, players who can handle the spotlight without combusting under it. And in that new NFL, guys like Shedeur Sanders are becoming the standard. So while this story started with clapping and yelling on the sideline, it's ending with something far more important, a turning point. For the Browns, for Sanders, and whether he realizes it or not, for Jeudy. Because the clock is ticking. The path forward for both players is clear, but only one of them is rising. Let us know where you stand. Should the Browns move on from Jeudy? Do you think Sanders is the real deal? Drop your takes in the comments. Like the video if you're as shocked by this as we are, and make sure to subscribe. Because with the way this season is going, there's no telling what drama's waiting in the next game.